Malvesi and Chair of Babergh District Council. Therefore, I will be chairing the meeting this evening. The meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending the meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we'll ensure that you're not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to so do, please could you inform the committee clerk. May I please ask that all mobile phones be switched to silent or switched off, and that your laptops are switched to silent. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point, which is Ipswich Town Football Ground. Before the commencement of the meeting, I would like to pay tribute to Councillor Dave Busby, who passed away on the 27th of July. Dave was the serving councillor for Copdock and Washbrook, a position he held since first elected in 2003. During this time, he was appointed as Cabinet Member for Assets and Investments, as well as Cabinet Member for Planning, a position that he stepped away from after being diagnosed with his illness. Dave served the council well and his ward with dedication and distinction, and he will be missed by all in this council chamber. To remember Dave's contribution, I ask you please to stand for a minute's silence, after which Councillor Parker will say a few words. Councillor Parker.
Thank you very much, Chair, members. Dave's passing will be deeply felt by everybody in the Council. He was a passionate advocate for his constituents, and his wealth of experience earned him respect across all sides of the Council. A conviction politician, principled yet always fair, and his calm, reassuring presence will be greatly missed. I had the privilege of working alongside Dave for many years on the Planning Committee, And I often chuckled when, despite Councillor Beer's reminders that we must only consider an application as presented before us, Dave would not only assess that application and its merits, but then proceed to completely redesign it in a way that better matched his own vision. He would look genuinely surprised when the rest of us didn't immediately share that vision. And it was classic Dave. Creative, determined, and never afraid to think differently. Above all, he was a good man, a funny man and a warm man, a proper Lib Dem. He was a mentor to me and was always just a phone call away with his advice, his encouragement, or simply a listening ear. Respect amongst colleagues in the council chamber is expected, but genuine friendship is perhaps rarer. Well, I was honoured to call Dave my friend. His loss, far too soon, is not only the council's but also the district's. Yet his legacy will endure in the lives that he touched and the people he helped along the way. May he rest in peace. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You're welcome. Councillors, if anybody else wishes to say a few words. Thank you, Councillor Wyman. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to endorse wholeheartedly what Councillor Parker just said. I can remember Dave from the past, and we all had good times, and we really did. You're quite right. He used to put me in my place as well, and I never really complained to him at all. Madam Chairman, I don't know whether you intended to continue on the same theme, but there's two other councillors that have passed away. Councillor Elizabeth Wiles, who in the last 6 weeks, who represented Sudbury, and Councillor David Crutchfield, who represented Headley. Yeah. And both of them, unfortunately, have both passed. And I think it's worth noting, you may not have known either of them. I think you might have known Elizabeth Wiles. But I'm sure some members here can remember David Crutchfield and Elizabeth Wiles, and I think that should be duly noted. I'm not criticising anybody, I just think that
thank you very much for drawing.
Unfortunately, I go back
news
too far. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think members will make a note so that it is logged into the minutes for next month. Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. If I just may say a few words, I think Lee's probably, or Councillor Parker, stolen my script because there's quite a few things in there that he's already said. I mean, what is there left to say about Dave? I mean, I've known him over 30 years, 15 years as a sort of colleague through Hindlesham Parish Council, and probably another 15 years socially with people we knew and met and various things. If I've got to characterise Dave as an individual, I mean, he was the Clint Eastwood of Babergh District Council, wasn't he? Good looking, and he always shot from the hip. Dave could be so endearing, but equally, if you work with him on certain things, he could be super frustrating. Because as Councillor Parker said, he wanted to reshape things in his vision, and his vision wasn't always everyone's vision. He was a persuasive, compassionate, and altogether proper bloke. Dave was probably already on God's right hand, giving advice, and I'll miss him a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to say a few words? No. Councillors, just to repeat, we'll make a note of former Councillor Crutchfield and former Councillor Elizabeth Wiles. Right, okay, thank you very much. We're sorry to hear that sad news. I now ask the monitoring officer to confirm the apologies received.
Thank you very much, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Jane Carruthers, Helen Davies, Catherine Brandon, Michael Holt, Bryn Horan, Lee Jamieson, John Nunn and Daniel Potter.
Thank you. I now advise you all that the monitoring officer has granted Babergh District Councillors dispensation to allow them to speak and to vote on matters concerning devolution and or local government reorganisation at all Babergh District Council meetings where they may otherwise have a disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interest or non-registrable interests. It's a mouthful. Right, and I call for any declarations of interest on tonight's agenda. No, so we can move on. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of July? Are there any issues with accuracy? Because this is for accuracy only. No? Can I have a proposer, please, and a seconder? Councillor Owen proposing and seconding. Councillor Register. And we'll now conduct a vote by a show of hands. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. I now draw your attention to paper BC 2516, which is for noting. And I now move to the leaders' announcements. And Councillor John Ward, can you present your update?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beer, for mentioning David Grutchfield. It is the first item on my list here. And I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to former Labour Councillor David Grutchfield, who passed away on the 4th of September, aged 87. David represented the Hadley ward from 1986 until 2014, appearing on multiple committees during his 28-year tenure. He also served twice as the Mayor of Hadley from 1992 to 1993, and again from 2004 to 2005, as well as being a member at Suffolk County Council for 24 years. His funeral will be held at Hadley United Reformed Church on Tuesday, 30th of September at 2:30 p.m. Our thoughts are very much with his family and friends. Moving on, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our staff and councillors involved in bringing the Tour of Britain cycling race to our districts earlier this month, and for making it such an outstanding success. While the weather wasn't perfect, people were out in force in every town and village on the route. It was a great showcase of our districts to an international TV audience. We received many compliments from members of the public on the success of the event, and we look forward to receiving the report which sets out the economic benefits it delivered. To bring an international sporting event to Babergh at relatively short notice was a superb achievement. So thank you again to our staff, councillors and partners for making it happen, and especially to Rachel Cattermole for pulling it all together. You should all be extremely proud of what was achieved. I'm pleased to say that we have opened applications for a grant aimed at tackling social isolation during the colder months. The Living Well in Winter grant supports local organisations, including town and parish councils, village hall and playing field committees, sports clubs and centres, charities, social enterprises, community shops and community interest companies to deliver accessible, inclusive spaces and affordable activities that help people to stay connected throughout the winter. Last year, this campaign funded 12 projects in our district. Eligible projects might include lunch clubs, after-school clubs, low-cost family sports sessions, community cafes, or any other initiative that brings people together and supports residents through the colder months. And up to £2,000 can be applied for but applications must be submitted by Sunday the 19th of October, and I would encourage members to let your communities know. And lastly, along with Councillor Wyman, I was very pleased to accompany Councillor Derek Davis recently on a leg of his 55-mile walk in aid of Alzheimer's research. I took them on a tour of the beautiful countryside around Polsford on a wet and stormy afternoon. Due to some exceptional planning and timing, I'm sure that we had shelter when the worst of the weather hit us. It was good fun. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ward. Now, do any councillors have any points of clarification? No? We shall move on. Petitions.
Thank you, Chair. None received.
Thank you very much. Have we received any questions by the public?
None received, Chair.
And by councillors?
None received.
Thank you very much. I now invite Councillor John Ward to present paper BC 2517, which is for noting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'm doing this on behalf of Councillor Hurren, who can't be with us this evening. And this is the 2024-2025 Treasury Management Strategy outturn. You remember that the strategy for the 2024 to 25 year was approved by both councils in February 2024. The main purpose of the annual outturn is to meet the requirements for the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy Code and to review compliance with the prudential indicators. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It's a very brief outline of what's in the paper before you. But the key highlights are the total debt for Babergh is £125.7 million as at the 31st of March 2025. The UBS fund closed during 2024 to 25, which crystallised a loss to the council of £495,000. The statutory override, which relates to international financial reporting standard, has been extended until April 2029, which means that any existing fund capital losses do not need to be recognised in the statement of accounts unless the fund is sold and the loss crystallised. Dividends received from the pooled funds is £4.3 million. Looking at our prudential indicators, our debt has remained below the capital financing requirement with a good amount of headroom available. We've remained within our authorised limits and operational boundary. We have identified 2 breaches within the 2024 to 25 financial year. The first being the investment limit being exceeded in Lloyds of £2 million due to circumstances outside of our control because of the Lloyds online banking system being unavailable for 1 day, and we could not therefore invest surplus funds. For 2025 to 26 and beyond, this limit has been removed and will therefore not be an issue in future years. Our second breach was on an interest rate exposure, which is where the threshold was set too low for our level of debt. In future, this calculation will be set to a more prudent level when compared to our level of debt. So I'd like to recommend the 3 recommendations, propose 3 recommendations in section 3 of the report, and I'd like to ask for a second, please.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Parker. Thank you very much. Now, members, you have the opportunity to ask as many questions as you wish, but they have to be pertinent and they have to be questions. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Always a pleasure to appear before you. Well, the first question, of course, is or as I understand it, the auditor's view of our capital losses, which I think are currently running somewhere between £5 and £6 million. We're going to, instead of recognising these losses to begin with, as they occur, do I understand it right? Do we have the authority to carry these losses forward to 2029?
I will pass to our Head of Finance for further clarification, but I believe this is only in relation to the current value of the pooled funds. David, is that?
Yeah, so I don't think the values are quite right that you've quoted, and we're not carrying that loss, but yeah, the statutory override does relate to our existing pooled funds that we have. Yeah, so we wouldn't have to recognise any losses on those unless we crystallise that loss. And by that, I mean if we sold one of those funds.
Question. So we're actually carrying non-performing assets and in some cases fictitious assets on our books.
I don't think we're carrying any fictitious assets, and as for non-performing, they are performing. They're providing interest for the council, and that's a very good form of income for supporting our general fund.
Councillor Ward, thank you for interpreting that statement as a question. Councillor Riley, do you have another question?
Question, madam. Yes, here we go. Paragraph 23. we see that we have a net borrowing requirement of £159 million, and Mid-Suffolk 109 million. Our borrowing went up by 10 million, and whereas Mid-Suffolk's went down by 47 million. Are you able to throw any light on why we're in this adverse position? Page 23, paragraph 3.1.
This is the capital financing requirement. It's not the actual borrowing itself. David, can you explain that movement in the capital financing requirement, please?
Sorry. Yeah, so Mid-Suffolk had a lot more usable reserves available to them than Babergh. In terms of when you look at this table, so Mid-Suffolk has 103 million of available reserves compared to Babergh's 52 million. We know that Mid-Suffolk, in terms of their reserve position, is in a significantly better position than Babergh is. So that is one of the contributing factors. Yeah.
You have another question?
Of course.
Well, it would be nice if you asked.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I have another question, with your permission. Thank you. The figures of 3.1 effectively speak for themselves, which is what you've just said, really. What I really need to know is, what have Mid-Suffolk been doing for get such a favourable position, whereas we, whatever we have been doing, we are not in the same position. We're in a much adverse position. And whereas we both have the same sort of financial advisors.
You will be aware, Councillor Riley, that Mid-Suffolk has a much better position than Babergh, primarily for three reasons. Firstly, and more than anything else, Gateway 14. They are receiving huge dividend payments from Gateway 14. Secondly, over the years, they've had a lot more new homes bonus than Babergh has. And thirdly, for many years, they've had considerable income from their car parks.
Councillor Riley.
With your permission. Your voice dropped on the third reason. Could you repeat it for me again, please?
Oh, gosh. Thank you for the second opportunity. They've had considerable income from their car parks for many years.
Thank you. I have another question, Madam Chairman, with your permission. If we run to page 27, I think it's the last. It's not the wrong one, sorry. Forget page 27. I've lost it. Here we are. Sorry, page 35. That's it. Table 17, paragraph 4.2. Capital finance requirement. We show an improving position shown in brackets, and for borrowing we show a deteriorating position shown in brackets. So the question is, do the use of brackets in this situation follow the accounting protocols, or is it a typo?
I'm struggling with the question, actually, Councillor Riley, but there are changes in both capital financing and borrowing, as you would appreciate, over the year. There has been a reduction in the capital financing requirement, as you've quite rightly pointed out. Borrowing does change
from year to year, and indeed within the year. And there is a slight increase, as you'll see there, between the budget and the actual, but you will know that it has been reported that, and I did mention earlier, that our borrowing has declined since then. So, David, is there anything further that that you could add to this?
Yeah, I think it's just a presentational thing that we can sort out in the paper.
Councillor Riley.
So, may I direct my question directly to the officer? With your permission? Thank you. So the use of brackets is correct in both cases. We use brackets for an improvement and brackets for a deterioration.
In this case, yes, it looks like we have done that, but I can make sure that for future papers that that's really clear. I hope that answers your question.
But could you say that again for me so I can understand? Brackets for a positive outcome and brackets for a negative outcome? Or is one of them incorrect? Which is the other question.
So what we've shown in table 17 is... Yep, no, cool.
Is it relevant to tonight's meeting, or can this be addressed outside the meeting?
I think it can be addressed outside.
Outside the meeting?
Session. Well, it can be explained to you outside the meeting rather than in the meeting when we've got other things to address.
I'd like to know.
Councillor Beer?
I'd like to know the answer as well.
Okay, fine. Councillor McCraw?
I wonder, Chair, if I could throw some light on this. I mean, these are basically the comparisons from the budgeted figures to the actual figures, both in tables 15, 16 and 17. And in each case we have a budgeted figure, that is what we expected, and then we have a final figure, the actual. And in a normal convention we show a negative variance where we've come in under budget in brackets. But it is a budgeted figure, it is not an actual figure. It is an actual figure, but it is against a budget. We didn't need as much requirement, as it were, as we thought. That's all it is. It's a convention. I'm not quite sure why this is an issue.
However, Councillor Riley?
Madam Chair, without trying to run this thing to death, the simple question is, are brackets appropriate in both cases? Well, I don't need a figure that explains to me. I mean, I accept they all add up and they all feed in. But the question is, we show a plus and a minus with brackets beside it. And if you tell me this is to be expected, then I'll sit down and go away. If you tell me one of them, Madam Chairman...
All councillors.
I'm sorry?
We can share this with all the councillors who are here today and those who are not here tonight. I just want to move the meeting on because we do have a big issue later on. Sorry?
I doubt your wishes, all right? I accept one of these might be a typo, one of these might not be a typo. The conventions might be mixed, in which case we can move on. Yeah, and that, I'm pleased to say, concludes my questions on this paper.
Sorry? Okay. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. Anybody else with questions that need answering? Remember, this paper is for noting. We'll now move to debate, even though it is for noting. So who's going to start the debate? Well, nobody's wanting to ask us to start the debate. I'll now ask the Head of Democratic Services. Oh, Councillor Register.
I'd just like to comment that if Councillor Riley had...
It has to be a question, not a comment.
No, this is a debate.
Oh, we're debating, right, sorry.
If Councillor Riley, who sits on Joint Audit and Standards, had actually been at the meeting, we could have saved at least 10 minutes in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Register. Anyone else wish to debate? Can we now move to the vote? Please, can you conduct the vote?
Councillors, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, can I take your vote verbally?
I'm sorry, yes. I'm unable to follow the recommendation.
Councillor Beer, can I take your vote verbally?
Against.
Against. Members, that is 17 votes for, 6 against. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We now move to paper BC 2518, which is Local Government Reorganisation in Suffolk, the case for change. I invite the leader, Councillor John Ward, to introduce the report and to move the recommendations, after which I will need a seconder. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. As you'll all remember, in July, this council, along with all the other Suffolk districts and Ipswich Borough, approved a motion to back the development of a business case for a 3 unitary solution for future local government in our county. Our case for change has now been published, and we're here this evening to approve sending it to the government by the 26th of September, which is the deadline set for counties on the devolution priority programme. This is the first change in local government in just over 50 years. Our objective is to redesign local government in Suffolk so that it provides the best service to our residents for the next 50 years. Suffolk is a large, diverse county, the 8th largest by area in England. It can take over 2.5 hours to travel by car from one end of the county to the other, and considerably longer by public transport. There is little connection across the whole county, apart from a general sense of, we are Suffolk. This must be taken into account when designing councils for delivering local public services. We must recognise and respond to the unique characteristics across the county to ensure effective governance, service delivery and accountability. Our proposal for 3 unitary councils will do this. In our residents' survey, being local was the top priority for new councils. Residents want decisions affecting them and where they live to be made by councillors that understand their needs and represent their area effectively. Local accountability is important to them. Now, I'd just like to draw your attention to paragraphs 4.16 and 4.17 in the covering report. Appendix B on page 135 of the agenda pack contains a very brief, unmodified submission for 3 unitaries based on existing district boundaries. It includes a request for modification on page 141, which explains that we need to change those boundaries and asks that the detailed submission for 3 councils for Suffolk replaces the unmodified submission. This is so that we can conform with Section 2 of the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007, which states that submissions must be built around existing district boundaries and follows advice we've received from government. All areas that are submitting changes to district boundaries have been similarly advised. In developing our case for change, we started with a blank sheet of paper and developed a coherent proposal informed by our engagement with many stakeholders, councillors and the public. The case for change we have now provides a detailed analysis of Suffolk as a place that any new council structure must be built upon. We show in the case for change how it meets the government's 6 mandatory criteria, plus our own 7 Suffolk principles for what we want to see from new councils. So what is our proposal? We are proposing 3 councils, a Western, a Central and Eastern, and an Ipswich and Southern, that focus on the distinctiveness of their local areas. In order to draw sensible, coherent boundaries for councils, we looked at the relationship between each parish, village, town and area. We considered a number of characteristics: economic activity, land use, travel to work patterns, school catchment areas, access to leisure activities, public transport links, the road network. And we also considered population. We need 3 councils with equal sizes of between 250,000 to 255,000 each, rising to 320,000 to 340,000 by 2045. Finally, we wanted to ensure good representation and a manageable workload for councillors. So each council will have between 60 and 66 councillors, each representing about 4,000 residents. Anything fewer, as proposed by One Suffolk, would be a hollowing out of local democracy in Suffolk, put an impossible burden on councillors, and discourage people from standing for election. Looking at the finances, our proposal will achieve £106 million savings in the first 5 years, then £34 million per annum after that. It will have £20 million annual disaggregation and investment costs, and it will require a one-off implementation cost of £39 million, but it will break even after 4.3 years. There is also the potential for an extra £67.5 million a year social care savings, suggested by a review conducted by the Social Care Institute of Excellence. Now to the question of council tax and how it will be harmonised. Firstly, and I must stress this because it is fundamental to rebutting the excitable claims of our opponents, harmonisation is not difficult, because only a small percentage of the overall council tax, the district component, will be subject to harmonisation, and the differences are small. We have modelled several scenarios, and on our preferred one, we show that we can harmonise council tax in each of our 3 unitaries in the first year, and that no one would pay more than they would have done under the current councils. One interesting consequence of this is that Babergh residents in the Ipswich and Southern unitary will actually end up paying £2 a year less than those in the Western unitary. So much for the accusation that being with Ipswich would mean higher council tax. So in summary, we are looking to achieve the best value for money, and that's not always provided by the cheapest option. One Suffolk may give greater savings, but what is more important is the quality of the services, tailoring them to the specific needs of different areas, and crucially, local accountability for decision making. Our proposal is the only one that provides appropriate representation of the diverse economies and communities of Suffolk. In addition to our survey, we have held many meetings with town and parish councils and also several public meetings, most notably the debate between Suffolk County Council and Babergh District Council, chaired by our MP in Hadley. A vote taken at the end showed overwhelming support for 3 unitaries, which confirms the view across the county. I know this is ultimately a decision for government, but if a referendum were held, 3 unitaries would be the overwhelming choice of our town and parish councils and residents. It is what is best for Suffolk. Thank you, Chair.
Do I have a seconder in Councillor Saw? Thank you very much. Councillor Saw, do you wish to speak now or delay later at debate? Okay, thank you. Now, first off, we need questions from members, and you can ask as many questions as you like. Councillor Register.
Given all of the councils involved, the district, borough councils and county, do not have fully audited accounts for the last 5 years, how on earth will any unitary of any size have an accurate clue about how much money and reserves they will have to play with when they commence operations?
Councillor Ward?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Wasn't expecting that. Well, first and foremost, we do have accurate outturns for each financial year. We don't have audited accounts, but our outturns do give a very good picture of where we stand. And we can only base our projections on the outturns for those years for which we don't yet have audited accounts. But I'll take your point. But this is not a problem that is affecting just Suffolk. There is a problem nationally with auditing of local government finances. It is only one of many challenges that we will have to face in the next year or two as we design the new councils for Suffolk. There are greater challenges, quite honestly, but I take your point. This is one that we will have to face. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Glover?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, page 56, if I can direct you to that. The budget figure here of 44.3% for children and young people care appears to be wrong, as we believe this to be the figure for adult social care. This prompts the question that if this figure is wrong, then how can we have any confidence in the figures being presented here? Thank you.
Page 56 of the agenda pack you're referring to, aren't you? Yeah. So which number are you referring to? Like, can you just...
44.3%, 627.2.
Gosh, I'm trying to find this. If there is an error on that page, then I will have to go back and get that fixed. But I'm
56.
Which page is this?
we're on page 56 of our agenda pack, and I'm trying to look for the number that you're referring to. Can you give me a clue as to whereabouts on this page? In the budget box for children and young people? Yeah. Of Suffolk's. So 44.3% of the County Council's budget spent on children and young people. I will need to go back and get that checked. If there is an error there, well, I'll get it fixed. Yeah.
That's incorrect.
Because if you look at in the Suffolk County Council, if you look at the Suffolk County Council website, that's where those budget figures are.
But how do you know their figures are correct?
Yeah. But surely it's open to challenge. Yeah. If it's the wrong way round, I believe that's the figure for adult social care as opposed to...
Adult social care is about 390 million at the county.
Right, okay. Well, in that case, it needs investigation, I think. Yes.
Councillor Ward, do you accept?
We'll check it, but I'm not sure that it's wrong, to be honest. That 627 million is definitely not the adult care budget.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Beer? And then Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I'd just like to ask Councillor Ward a question regarding the council tax. Residents of Pinewood and Hadley are afraid, the ones that have contacted me anyway, that they will be swallowed up by a Greater Ipswich, and it's reported that their council tax is 20% higher than ours. Now, I know, and I'm sure you do, that council tax never really goes down, so it can only go up. And yet you were saying this was unlikely to happen, and yet it's been in the papers and goodness knows what, that this council tax increase could hit residents of Babergh, some of the people that my colleagues opposite represents. Thank you.
Councillor Beer, I'm not sure you actually heard my introduction, where I clearly explained that that wasn't going to happen. That was scaremongering by our opponents. Firstly, there's no swallowing up by Greater Ipswich. There's no such thing as Greater Ipswich. Secondly, just to reiterate, the council tax for our residents in any of the three unitaries will not go up by more than it would have done in their current district councils. And that the percentage increases, I've got those numbers here at the moment, in the first year in our harmonisation scenario, harmonising in the first year, the variation across the county will be between 1.39% for the lowest increase and 4.79% for the highest increase. So in other words, no different from our current councils, and also, crucially, harmonisation within the threshold for triggering a referendum. So no, there's no 20% increase for anybody. And I don't know where that number, well, I do know where that number came from. It came from one or two, I know one or two county councillors have been mentioning that number, but with no justification whatsoever. It's a number they picked out of thin air.
Thank you. Councillor Dowling, I've got your note. Next is Councillor Riley, then Councillor Davies, and then Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have three questions. And the first one, and we actually go to page 122. To nice little table. And we talk about redundancy and termination costs. And the first question is, can we have your assurance that for redundancy costs will not be enhanced beyond government statutory guidelines?
I think this is a detail for the new unitaries, to be honest, Councillor Riley, and it'll be a matter of whether it's a 3 unitary solution or a 1 unitary solution. So I'm not really able to comment any further on that, but I would assume the answer to that is no, it won't be greater than those government guidelines.
Yeah, please. Sorry. Thank you.
Just to add to the leader's response, so the terms and conditions that employees are employed under, which includes the redundancy policies, is what will guide any redundancy situation. So that isn't the government statutory minimum, but it is our current policies of each authority that would apply.
Thank you.
Is this your third question?
That was my first question. I'll move on. My second subject of query is that I can't quite now work out whether we're having savings or not. I assume we are, because otherwise there'd be no point in going through this exercise. So if we're having savings, can we please think about returning money to the taxpayer? It's not our money that we're spending, it's their money. Yeah, and therefore we should look at our over 60s, our pensioners, and see what enhancement, deduction. I have. It's going to get there. So the question then comes is, will you look into the way we're distributing the council tax, and whether we have the ability to reduce the council taxes upon our elderly taxpayers, our older taxpayers.
Councillor Riley, the answer to that is not a matter for this case for change. That is a decision for the new councils to set their council tax rates. All we can do is to model possible scenarios. And we have shown that in many of our scenarios, including the one we prefer, we can harmonise within the referendum threshold. Now, I know that our one council opponents are making a big play of reducing council tax to mid-Suffolk levels across the whole county. Well, quite honestly, that is not something they can deliver. As I said, it's something for the new council. And this is one of several areas where their business case crosses the line, becomes an election manifesto. And frankly, I don't think the government's interested in election manifesto promises.
Councillor Riley, you still have a question remaining. And then I'll come to Councillor Leah after Councillor Dowling.
Madam Chairman, I can't see the relevance of my next comment, so I'll sit down. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Davies?
Adult social services would have to be split up if we had 3 unitary authorities. I think it's called disaggregation. I can see that there may be risks in splitting up a large service. How are we going to mitigate those risks of people falling between the gaps of some chaotic mess happening as a result of splitting up adult social services?
Under the current county council system, there's already a split of delivering social services in 3 different areas across the county. We will ensure that there is a lot of cross-council working to maintain that consistency of delivery across the county. And the important thing is that at the moment, both adult and children's services are costing a lot more than the local and national averages. There's clearly something going wrong there, and the Social Care Institute of Excellence has looked into this, and this is why I mentioned earlier that there's a potential for us to get another £67.5 million annual savings out of the social care budgets. And that is only something that can be delivered from a 3 unitary solution. That cannot be delivered from the single unitary model, because they have shown that smaller councils do deliver better social services.
Councillor Dowling, and then Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Chair. Just to return briefly to council tax, if I may. Can Councillor Ward confirm that one reason for Ipswich Borough Council's higher headline figure for council tax is that, as a borough, Ipswich doesn't have any town council or parish councils, and therefore the precepts that would usually be drawn by this lowest tier of government are included in the Ipswich Borough Council figure?
Yes, that is true, Councillor Dowling. That's why the Ipswich Borough figure is significantly higher than any of the other district councils in the county. And which is why, in our case for change, we've made the assumption that there will be a town council for Ipswich, and that there will be a precept for those very local services that only that town council will deliver, in the same way that Hadley, Sudbury, and every other town council delivers local services in the county. And that we have assumed a rough amount of about £200 per annum for that precept. So that has taken off the borough council's element of the council tax that needs to be harmonised. Therefore, that makes that harmonisation process much simpler. Indeed, One Suffolk, in their case for change, also makes the assumption that Ipswich will be parished and will have a town council and a separate town council precept. That is quite a sensible approach to this, and it is why the scaremongering about council tax is not actually something that's going to happen. It's no more than that. Council tax harmonisation is simple and straightforward.
Thank you. Any more questions, Councillor Dowling? Thank you. Councillor Beer, and then Councillor Saw, did you wish to ask a question? Okay, and then Councillor Clover. Councillor Beer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I just ask Councillor Ward, you referred to the new authorities and the powers that they would have, and the influence. If we had one of the 3, or the government decided on 3 unitaries, would you pursue, or would you try and pursue, harmonising car parking charges throughout that one unitary? Because Suffolk County Council has indicated that if we got one Suffolk, they would look at harmonising the car parking charges in all our market towns, because they're astronomical, too high. As you've said, Mid Suffolk get a lot of money in from this. People can't afford it, and it could be a way of selling it if you were going to try and get those down. At the moment, all we see is car parking charges going up. Thank you.
Car parking charges has nothing to do with our case. Has nothing to do with our case for change. I'm not making any comments about that. It's a matter for the new councils to decide what they want to do about car parking, or indeed any other matter of how they operate their councils. Yes, one council has, the one Suffolk council proposal has made a play about conducting a review or whatever about car parking charges across the county. That is another area where their case for change crosses over and becomes a party election manifesto. And to put in empty promises like that, well, yes, they can waste their time, but completely irrelevant to what we're trying to discuss here today.
Questions, Councillor Beer? Okay, thank you. And now Councillor Saw, then Councillor Clover.
Thank you, Chair. I think for the benefit of councillors, it would be good to know what assumptions we've made about government settlement in the future, because obviously we can talk about council tax for as long as we like, but a major influence on that is government policy. So I think councillors would be interested in the assumptions we've made on that.
Yeah, it is difficult to predict. We do have a review and a long-term settlement coming, hopefully very soon, but there are a lot of unknowns, and we have to err on the cautious side when looking at government funding and assume the worst in terms of the core grants, but also things like business rates. These are all things that are going to impact the future budgets of the future councils. And of course, everything pales into insignificance when we look at the dedicated school grant reserve that the county council, the negative reserve that the county council, in common with councils across the country, is building up. And when that finally hits and we have to come to some way of paying off the send deficits, any decisions the government might make with funding in the next few months will be very small beer in comparison with that. And yet we can't make any provision for that at the moment. It's all very difficult. It's all stuff we just don't know. These are the known unknowns, I think is probably the best way to describe them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to come round to KPMG. This question has been asked before. We know that they've worked with 14 other unitary authorities, but we haven't had the answers as how many of those went on to become, the ones that KPMG worked with, went on to become unitary authorities. The reason for asking this, I just want to try and gauge some sort of success rate that they have in terms of producing figures, and then they go on to actually present a good business case. So would you have any of that information?
I don't have that information to hand at the moment. I could probably get it. I don't know if the Chief Executive knows the answer to that. No? No. We'll have to get back to you with that one. Oh, Councillor Saw. Oh, yes. We know that they worked in Cumbria for the 2 years ago. Cumbria was split into two unitaries, Westmoreland and Cumberland, and that has been very successful in terms of their ability to deliver services. They're both actually very small unitaries. Westmoreland is 225,000, Cumberland 275,000. And Cumberland has definitely seen a great improvement in their adult services, and they've had a much improved CQC rating. So that is definitely a success. But as to others, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, fine, thank you. That's all.
Very much. Any more questions before we move to debate? Councillors happy to move forward to debate? Now, you have 3 minutes each. It will be timed, and the floor is yours. Don't all rush at once. Councillor McCraw?
I swore I wasn't going to do this. However, here I am. Here we are. We've talked about this for 9 months. It occurred to me right from the start that there were only two ways to approach the question the government had asked of us. One approach was to make up our minds immediately, what we wanted, and then go for it. Second approach, which I think is what the government were asking us to do, was to collaborate with all the other councils in Suffolk and work together and come up with a unified proposal that that we could all agree with. I'm sorry to say that we were the only ones who took that approach, but it has been a productive one because we consulted with the public. We went out, we've been out over and over again to towns, to parishes, to individuals. I think we've kept the propaganda to a minimum, although I do notice some recent stuff I've seen, which I have to say seems to me slightly improper. I'm going to come, though, to what the government asked of us. They gave us 6 criteria. I could go through them all. Hopefully you know them all. What we should be looking at for the whole area, what would be the right size of the unitaries, how we would deliver high-quality services, how we would work together and continue to work together, how we'd support devolution arrangements, and how we'd make for stronger community involvement. In all of those criteria, I think the Case for Change has made a very good, logical case, and I recommend the document to anybody that's got the time to go through it. It's a shorter document than some. I'm particularly impressed with the data provided in the appendices, and particularly, and this is going to sound like me, the governance model. I really like the fact that the governance of the future councils was looked at, because I've always found that to be the core of where council work is done, why it's done, and where we can demonstrate it's done for the right reasons. Overall, this is an approach that I think the government will be moderately impressed by. I'm not so convinced of the other case that's been made, and I will be supporting this throughout, and I've been writing extensively on it. And I have to say, the response I've had from people in my own patch has been, yeah, I mean, if the one Suffolk model was so fantastic, how come it has not done so well in the last 50 years? Why is it that our adult and child social care does cost more than other parts of the country? Why is it that highways is generally considered to be something of a mess wherever I go? There are a lot of things in the county council model that just don't work. We're starting again, a fresh approach, and I think that's what we can demonstrate in this Case for Change. So please vote for it.
Thank you. So I think we've done quite well on public consultations. Personally, I would have liked to have seen a few more, because I think it's just so important. It's such a big decision. But saying that, I believe that Councillor Ward is correct when he said that if there had have been a referendum, this is what the public would be asking for. I'm yet to speak to anyone who isn't a councillor, whether that's in Sudbury or anywhere else that isn't in favour of 3 councils. I haven't spoken to everyone, but I do try and speak to people about it as much as possible, just to make sure that they're aware and they know what's going on. And what they've said to me, they want local choice, local accountability, and councils that reflect their communities, which I believe this paper represents, which is why I'm supporting it. Thank you.
Owen.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with everyone that we should support this. I had an officer come round to our Delphi retiredee group, and every one of them was in favour of the three unitaries. So everyone I've spoken to doesn't want one. They want it local, and there wasn't no mention of council tax going up. It was all about we want local, we want it nearer us. So I will be supporting the 3 unitaries.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor McLaren, then Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, for the last 9 months, we've all had the benefit of lots of information. Sorry, you can't hear Peter. No, I have the same problem. For the last 9 months, we have had regular Teams meetings, we've had regular actual meetings, and at this point, I would like to thank Arthur and all his staff who actually have provided us with the information over the past 9 months. It has enabled and empowered me, and I'm still going with groups of people in my patch, because the information has been available to us. And I've nothing but praise for your staff, Arthur, and yourself. Thank you very much.
Councillor Davis?
Yeah, thank you. I too support the three unitary model, mainly because it appears that's what our residents want. They prefer that local democracy. They want people representing them as near to the doorstep as possible. Shotley's a long way from Lowestoft, for example, and Shotley's a long way from Haverhill, for example. But the other reason that's come to me quite strongly over the past few weeks is the option of a one unitary run by, and I'm sorry to say this, Councillor, but a complete and utter failure of Suffolk County Council. How on earth do they expect to be able to legitimately and honestly say that they could do a better job? They have failed our residents time and time again. Just last month, they had to pay out thousands to parents of a child that they had failed in the SEND capacity. Dementia, the appalling state of failure of Suffolk County Council to look after people that need, when we talk about adult social care, they've also had to pay out thousands ordered by the regulator for their failings in that aspect as well. So why on earth should we trust them? Why on earth should the residents trust Suffolk County Council to take this one unitary and make it work? When we know, and the residents, for all they complain about what we do as well as separate districts and boroughs, we do a far better job. We deliver the services at a reasonable price, and I appreciate it's not always easy for a lot of people, but they're the main reasons why I support the three unitary. Thank you.
Very much. Anyone else? Councillor Clover?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, because to listen to this, because when I speak to people from presenting the case for One Suffolk, they claim a similar level of engagement. They say that a lot of people like what One Suffolk is saying and are supportive of it. And also, if we look at the surveys, it's interesting there. So for the Babergh Mid-Suffolk district, it was 2,200. This is a very low response against population, yet is claimed to be supporting of the three unitary models. To Suffolk County Council's survey, it was 9,000, and when you look at that population, it's probably slightly more as a percentage, but they're very similar figures. And I think that when we look at page 104 and 105, we have a qualitative analysis for all three unitary models, but there's not really been any proper consultation on this. There have been no group leader meetings to provide feedback. It hasn't gone to Cabinet. The decision has been made behind closed doors with lead councillors and senior officers. And in my view, this is undemocratic. It could be that two unitary authorities could be the solution, or the best solution for Suffolk, that the Secretary of State would go for, but this is off the table. So any decision here has been taken away from us, and I'm not sure the purpose of having a debate when really we're just paying lip service to ticking boxes. So I'm not sure that I can support this as it's presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clover. Now, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to agree with most of my colleagues here. We didn't choose LGR, and it's not possible to it's not possible to keep our current arrangements. But the report written here highlights that we've been given an enormous opportunity to add extra value and to see what's working well and do more of that, and see what's not working so well and change it. Everyone here wants to deliver the best services for our residents. and we all want our residents to be happy and healthy, and this is the opportunity to do that. Start again and get it right. I'd like to echo Councillor McLaren in her thanks to the officers who've worked so hard on this and kept us so well briefed. It's a convincing case. Thank you.
Councillor Sword, you wish to come in at the end, and I'll hear Councillor Register first. Yes, thank you. Councillor Register.
Yeah, I support the idea of 3 unitaries. I was at a funeral in Nottingham, and I was lucky enough to be talking to 2 local government officers who work in unitaries. They both knew Suffolk. They both said Suffolk is geographically too large to be one unitary. They said one of them knew Sudbury and knew Lowestoft, and said they're too far apart. They're way too far apart. And then on Sunday I was talking to councillors from Surrey who were going through as a priority programme, LGR, and one of them knew Suffolk, and they said, you can't have it as one. But then they've got problems. They've got 2 separate solutions with 2 unitaries and 3 unitaries. And I have to give it to Arthur and his team, because when I was discussing what we've been told and what we've been briefed on, all of us, including the members opposite, on this subject, we have been briefed far better than they have. And well done, Arthur and team.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak before Councillor Davis?
Thank you.
Have you not already spoken, or was it just a question? Okay. I'm sorry.
First of all, I don't agree with Councillor Clover that this decision has been taken behind closed doors. We have had umpteen briefings and discussions. We have all had an ample opportunity to make our views known, so I don't recognise what he's saying. What frightens me about the one unitary is just the practicalities of it. I think it would be if it was one unitary, it would be one of the biggest in the country. I think if I became a councillor in that unitary, I would be representing 4,400 people, around about that amount of people. I would be sitting in a chamber of 130 councillors. That in itself, on its own, to me, is such an unwieldy process that I cannot see how that would work. It's cheaper. That's the main headline that we've had from Suffolk County Council and their One Suffolk. It's cheaper. Well, we all know that cheaper is not always best. It will cost slightly more to have 3 unitaries. It's not in huge percentages more, slightly more. But I think most people that I've spoken to as well would rather pay a little bit more. They're not going to pay more, but they would rather it costs a little bit more to have a proper local service, because One Suffolk would just be undemocratic and too remote.
Very much. Anyone else before I invite Councillor Saw? Councillor Rees?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's been a lot of polarisation, hasn't there? We've had some very curious statements. We've had, ironically, Councillor Ward saying the only thing that we got was "we are Suffolk," which was strange. We've had a lot of talk about how squeaky clean our campaign has been, unlike the wicked Tories, and you'd think that we here were all putting forward the One Suffolk proposal. Have we? No. We've heard a lot of talk about value for money. We hear about value for money for councils. What that means, whether it's their aspirations or ideologies, I don't know. And then we hear about value for money for residents and the people who receive or use the services. And then very frequently at the bottom of the list is value for money for the taxpayers. they are usually on the last ones on the list. And let's not forget, as has been brought up earlier this evening, that all the money we spend somehow comes from taxpayers. We heard from Councillor Davis, who very ironically seems to be very confident that the Conservatives, if there were one Suffolk, would be re-elected. We've had the curious claims from both our collection of councils and Suffolk County Council that they're right, that what their surveys have shown have been either one way or another, with great confidence. It could be, of course, that we've been shortchanged, and everyone in Suffolk has been shortchanged by both sides, and that would there had been a proper and detailed case for two unitary councils, as many of the residents I have spoken to have expressed as an opinion. It has to be said, of course, that the two surveys or consultations from both sides of this polarised debate that we have now, it has to be said that the one put forward by the county council was of a significantly better and higher quality than the one that we put out. You have 30 seconds. Thank you. But one thing is clear to all of us here, that this decision was the decision to put forward the case for 3 councils on the 26th was made months ago by the leaders behind closed doors. I'm convinced of that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Anyone else wish to debate? Councillor Maybury?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be brief, so you'll all be very happy about this. What I find quite extraordinary and worrying is the veiled animosity that's occurred between county, borough and district councils. Now, if we're all supposed to be working to the same end for our residents, why have we had so much animosity? And I'm wondering whether there is, Councillor Ward, there's been a lot. And I'm wondering whether this could have been talked about, settled, decided. Another way of splitting the county could have been done if there hadn't been so much animosity. And I find that really, really sad. And I hope everyone here will take home that message, that if we cannot debate, talk, and be pleasant to one another at this level, how on earth is it going to carry on in the future, nationally and possibly internationally? And that is what worries me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, or can I ask Councillor Saw now to? Councillor Saw. And Councillor Ward, do you wish to give us summing up?
Yeah, I'm going to say something.
Councillor Saw.
Okay, you can sum up after us.
In actual fact, I do agree with Councillor Maybury. I do think that whatever the decision the government makes, and it will be the government, we, the districts, the borough and the county, will have to work together, and in the interests of our residents. And I'm sure I speak for the leader and myself and Cabinet when we're totally prepared to do that, and we wish to do that. Nobody has spoken about the mayor of Suffolk and Norfolk. The mayor, when she or he is voted in, will set the strategic direction and determine the priorities for investment. But it's the councils who will deliver. And to deliver properly, they will need local connection and local advocacy. We talk about, this is the biggest change in local government for 50 years. We are doing this at an enormous rate. I mean, if you think about 50 years ago, Redcliffe Moor took 9 years Now, I do think that is perhaps a little long. However, we are doing it in a matter of months. I would concur with everything else that has been said about the amount of effort the Chief Executive and the officers have put into this. We had ample opportunity, every councillor had ample opportunity to put their thoughts into the mix. And what we are talking about here is not just a short-term fix. We are going to have to deal with this, and our residents are going to have to deal with this for decades. So I think what we should be looking at, and what I think we have done, is looking at transformational change. And that's scary stuff. So we have to be brave. We have to put through changes in services. We recognise that in actual fact, the performance of our county, as opposed to that of our nearest neighbours, we don't perform as well as them. We have big challenges ahead. We have an ageing population. By 2045, 1 in 3 of our people are going to be over 65. That means that we have to transform adult social care, and our residents, the children and families, require us to work really hard to try and deal with the SEND problem. Yeah, thank you. So I will be voting for 3 unitaries for the betterment of our residents. Thank you.
Ward, do you wish to sum up before we go to the vote?
Yes, I would, Chair. Thank you for that. I also would like to express my thanks to Arthur and the officers here at Babergh and Miss Suffolk for all their work, but also, of course, to the officers around the county in the other districts and Ipswich Borough. Yeah. This has been a very good example of officers and leaders across the whole county working well together and at speed to develop what is an excellent case for change. Now, the County Council has failed to deliver good services, as Councillor Davis has pointed out, because the single county delivery model is flawed. We need a new delivery model because replicating the existing one will only result in continuing failure. Now, one Suffolk would have a population of 761,000, rising to 844,000 by 2040, much larger than any other existing single county unitary. Only and I've already mentioned the size of the county, geographically speaking, only North Yorkshire, Northumberland, and maybe Norfolk, depending on what happens there, would be larger by area, and only Norfolk larger by population. It is interesting that there are very few existing single county unitaries, and very few of the remaining two-tier areas are proposing single county unitary solutions. So are we really supposed to believe that nearly every other county in England has got it wrong with multiple unitaries? Surely that is trying to tell us something. The smaller, locally focused unitaries are not only better for engaging with residents, they also provide better services. This is borne out by a recent report by Empower, which found, and I quote, "No clear correlation between the population size and adult social care performance. No economies of scale in delivering care." And it concluded that some of the best performing councils are among the smallest. Our case for change is founded in what our residents and town and parish councils want. It reflects Suffolk's varied communities and economies. It sets out how 3 councils would improve adults and children's services. It shows how 3 councils in each of Norfolk and Suffolk would support the mayoral strategic authority much better. And it delivers savings and investment in services. Government guidance aims to ensure that new unitary structures are efficient, financially stable, and capable of delivering high-quality public services while engaging with and empowering local communities. Our case for change answers that guidance in ways that one Suffolk simply cannot. So, is this a good, robust, evidence-based proposal that will deliver the best possible local government for our residents? Can we approve submitting it to the government? I firmly believe that the answer to both these is a resounding yes. And our residents know that, which is why they support our proposal, and which is why we should now agree, along with our colleagues in the other councils, to submit our case for change this week. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, can I take your vote verbally?
Against.
Councillor Beer, can I take your vote verbally?
Against the 3, 1 Suffolk, so I'm against. Thank you.
Councillor Newman, can I raise your vote verbally? Against. Members, thank you for your patience. That is 17 votes for, 4 against, and 2 abstentions. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. I think Arthur and Tom and all the others that have been involved in pulling this together will now look forward to having their weekends back, and in some cases their evenings, and I know that Arthur is looking for a payback on Christmas that he lost last year. Okay, moving on. Councillor appointments. Are there any changes to the placings? No? So just move on. Motions on notice?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. And at 18:56, I declare the meeting closed, but remind you of the next meeting on the 21st of October. Okay?